morning, and I'm sitting in the hotel room, and I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm meditating, and I'm inside, and I'm just in step two. The great reality is deep within. Is there a place inside me where I can go where God is? Have I really set aside my prejudice? Have I stopped covering all this up with calamity and pomp and ceremony and worship of other things? God, I love His language. I just love it. God was really loving us through Wilson, wasn't He? Man. And I'm now sitting on the forest floor, and there's that pewter pole, and I'm tucked up against that thing. And then I hear a voice, and then I have a sense of, yeah. My whole attitude changed that day, because I know there is a place in me, and I can't be more specific than that, and you'll have a much different experience than I did, but you will come to a time and a place where you can go inside you and know that there is connection with the divinity available to you there. The universe's divinity. It brought me to tears, and I can remember it with a sense of awe today. And I left that hotel room and went across the street and spent the next 3 days putting on a case. And every once in a while I'd go inside like a little kid running in the kitchen to make sure his mom's still there. I'd go in and check in and come back out again and come back. And it was just, I was living. I was alive. Not because I was trying an exciting lawsuit, not because things were going well, but because I had a connection inside me. Because I had met the conditions necessary to do that. They told me that you use these promises as a checklist. And if I have the promises coming alive in my life, I know that I have done the deal. I know, for example, that I have allowed them to help me sweep away prejudice, to think honestly, to search diligently within myself, and because I want so much to join you on the broad highway. It's that kind of thing. And when it happens, it happens. And I really never dreamed that it would be available to me, because I think I'm out beyond the pale. I think that I have learned too much about religion and God and all of that stuff and these rules and everything. I can't, until finally they told me, here's the prayer. And I've been saying it since I began the process. Dear God, please let me set aside everything I think I know about you and about me and about this program and about these steps for an open mind and a new experience of you and me and the program and the steps. I needed an open mind. Man, did I need an open mind. Because I'd been around too long, and man, did I need a new experience. Because I'd been if I celebrated any experience at all, I celebrated one that was 23 years earlier, trying to get my daily bread out of that. And as remarkable as the removal of that obsession to drink might be, it doesn't take me where I want to go, because I can't celebrate it as this day's experience. I need this day's experience, because I need to feel alive. And I was always trying to feel alive, always doing something that would make me feel alive. And all the things that I did that I thought made me feel alive, and which in part did make me feel alive, always created trouble for me and for the people around me. Whether it's compulsive gambling, compulsive sex, lying, cheating, stealing, going to the hospital every night, thinking I'm going, whatever our deal is that we use to make us feel like we're alive, usually hurts somebody, and almost always slows us way down. I have in my den a picture of a photograph that some famous photographer took of an infant. And this baby's on its stomach and it's looking up like this, and there's a little drool coming out, and it's got the most beatific smile, the most gorgeous smile. And the eyes are wide, and it's like up for anything, like a little baby is. Just, what's next? What's next? Let's go. Except this infant is an infant, but he's got that. He's got that wonderful thing cooked in. He's fully alive. And I love it there because that's where I want to play. I want to play alive in the world. My grandson was up the other day. He said, "Why do you have that picture in there?" And I took him back and I said, and I told him what I just told you. I said, "What do you think of that?" And he's quite a kid. He said, "He's not wearing any masks, is he? Not wearing any masks." I said, "Would you be my sponsor, kid?" And I don't want to wear any masks. I want to tell you exactly what's happened to me and what it means to me. And that's all I know about it. I can't explain everything in words, but that's where. And the other piece of it is the opportunity to get a front row seat to the transformative experience of another human being. Watch that life change. It's just amazing. And I know that many of us and many of you have had an opportunity to watch a life transform. A guy that can't stop drinking stumbles in here a year ago, and now we see him again, and you see him again. And we know, we cannot doubt that life is just lost. And we also know he didn't do anything, any more than we did for the gift. Oh, we see it. And we sit in a meeting and we see it. Because your blind spots are in different places than my blind spots, and I can hear you. And that's what the meaning of the fellowship is about. This is where we hear things we can't hear in any other way. This is where we begin to get the message. And then when we get this, we come back with a different purpose, a purpose to share, not a purpose to get. Not a purpose to get. And so, when we go to step 3, and somebody says, "Are you willing to turn your will and your life over to the care of that power?" The answer is, damn right. In a heartbeat. Because I have seen and felt the experience. I know He's inside me like the ocean is in a wave. I know He loves me. I know that He will take care of me. I know that there is more power there than I ever imagined. And I know that it has my best, my very best at heart. Will I turn my will and my life over that care of that God? Oh yeah. I like the sense of aliveness it brings me. I like the sense of direction. I like all of this. And I did that. I did that 3rd step prayer. Relieve me of the bondage of self, you bet. Now I'm in shape to really understand that, because I've thought long and well before taking this step, making sure I can at last abandon myself utterly to Him. I know what those words mean now. I know that. And I'm awake. And I say yes. I say yes. I know that the leap is safe. Because it's almost like we're impelled to the leap before we have to say, "I'll turn my will and my life over to His care." It's almost like the leap is made. And we find ourselves safe. We find ourselves, I like that line from that hymn, Amazing Grace. It was grace that's brought us safely here, and grace will take us home. Safely here. And safely we'll go home together. Now we have some business to conduct. It's noon. We have a noon meal or a 12:30 meal? Noon meal. Yeah. So we're going to stop. But I first need to get some information from you about this afternoon. We could do a session or two this afternoon and a couple sessions tonight before your meeting, or we could give you the afternoon off to do whatever you want to do. And I'd like to get a sense of where you guys are with it. I know you. And we'll break till dinner time, and we, in the book, I'm at a chapter called How It Works. Yeah. He's interesting because he tells us exactly where we are here on page 60. He's come down to the end of the We Agnostics, and then he gives us all 12 steps. And then he says our description, on page 60, our description of the alcoholic, the chapter 2, the agnostic, and our personal adventures before, when we were drunk, and after, in sobriety, make clear 3 pertinent ideas. And then he recaps steps 1 and 2 in ABC. He says we were alcoholic, could not manage our own lives, that no human power could have relieved our alcoholism, and that God could and would if he were sought. That's 1 and 2. And so he says, being convinced of these 3 things, we were at step 3. So the question that we have to go back and look at is, am I convinced that I am alcoholic and that I cannot manage my own life? Am I convinced that probably no human power could have relieved my alcoholism? Am I convinced that God could and would if he were sought? You can see that it takes an awful lot of looking at chapter 4 and going through that work for us to really get that God could and would if he were sought, and we have to, at this point, define alcoholism too. Because alcoholism isn't just the way we drank. Alcoholism is a chronic affliction that's characterized by a mind that lacks proportion and can't think straight, by old ideas, and by an ego that's a mess. And how are we going to be given a daily reprieve from a mind that cannot possibly manage this? So he says we can't run our lives on self-will anymore. That is not going to work. It isn't that there's a moral problem with it, it's just the way we have it wired up, it simply does not work. Because we're almost always in collision with somebody or something or somebody. And then he tells us basically on 60 and 61, if you look at the high points of my day, it says, my motives are good, I'm quite virtuous, kind, considerate, patient, generous, modest, self-sacrificing, gracious, admitting I may be somewhat at fault, trying to be kind, managing well, best moments. And what do we come up with? We come up with this. It's a disaster when I'm at the top of my game. And that was so annoying to me. Because I used to think, if I put out crap, I'm not surprised I get crap back. But man, that time I really meant well. And she still got mad. I mean, when I'm at the top of my game, it's a mess. When I'm doing it alone. When I'm operating off self-will. When I am thinking that I can run the deal and figure it all out and decide on a course of action and take it. I'm really a mess. When I think it's about what I'm doing. So we take a look at some of the options that we get. He says we think our troubles are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. The world's bumper sticker is that shit happens. AA's bumper sticker would be shit arises out of ourselves. We ought to put that bumper sticker on our car. There's another thing that we can get out of Bill's story back here, because he says in his story that an amazing thing happens when we begin to turn the corner on all of this, and that is that we get a completely different life. Bill talks like that. He's talking at page 14 or 15 of his story that we enter onto a new relationship at page 13 with our Creator. We have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. He says, simple but not easy, a price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. And I got another definition out of selfishness here, because when you said I was selfish, that didn't resonate so much for me, because I didn't want anything out of your pile. I would much rather go out and get my own pile. But when you said no, your selfishness is that you think you have to do it all yourself. You've made a virtue out of having to do it all yourself. And you are hammered the minute you think that. It meant the destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. In other words, I don't have any business trying to do anything myself. Why? Because I don't have any power. I can't manage my life. And for me, I've always had the idea, since I was a little kid, I have to do it all myself. I automatically default to that position. Automatically. Have to do it all myself. Whether it's my relationship with Linda at home, relationship at the office, relationship with my work, whatever it is, sponsoring some guy, how am I going to figure all of this out? I always think I have to come up with the answer myself. I have to do it all myself. And that is selfishness. And that is a very, very debilitating thing, because that conviction means that I cannot turn to the Father of light in anything. And He says I have to turn to Him in all things. And so here I am trying to run my life, and I come with the best possible motives, and the result is always a disaster. It says here that our troubles are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, where self-will run riot. We must be rid of this selfishness or it kills us. And so here we go. Page 62. The how and the why of it is, number one, we had to stop playing God. We can either seek God or play God, but they're mutually exclusive and we can't do both. I can seek God or I can play God, but I can't do both. Next, we decided, this is a decision that we make, that in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. Now, He gives us 4 possible relations that we can have. And they gave me an exercise to do here. The 4 relationships are director-actor, principal-agent, employee-employer, and father and child. Those are the 4 they give us. I was surprised that partner didn't come in here. I want a partnership with God. It sounds so noble. There's a piece of Thomas Merton that's read at some of the meetings in Los Angeles. It says, we know you want us to be real partners with you in this business of living. Wilson didn't seem to know that. He thought it was going to be director, actor, father, child, employee, principal, agent. And I'm glad he didn't know about the partner thing, because I think it would start out God and Hodges. Then it go to Hodges and God. And then Hodges and Associates. He said, I don't want a partnership. I really do not want a partnership, not with God. Why? Because He's got all the power. What do where would that go? That's just nuts. I don't have any of the power. He's, we get to it in the 4th step. I, all my life, thought the best possible life I could have if I really wanted to be a good kid was to run around demonstrating to God what I can do for God. That's my job. If I can just demonstrate to God what I can do for Him, be an exemplary kid. And I can't do that very long. I can't even try. It doesn't even interest me. And then I start having dirty thoughts and the whole thing is over with anyway, and I might as well be as bad as I can be. But I thought, really, if I could just be exemplary and really demonstrate to God what I could do for Him, that maybe He would look down and notice and say, oh, all right, he's trying, I'll help him. I thought that. And this book tells me that that was never my job. Never my job. It tells me that it isn't about that I should do anything for God. The question is not that. It's not that. It says that it's up to me. It's about what I can be. What would God have me be? Because He'll demonstrate through me what He can do. It's always about be. That's why I said last night when I consider my plans for the day, I consider what I should be. What would I be? Patient? Loyal? Faithful? Appropriate? Orderly? Once we know what to be, we know what to do. There's no big problem with that. I don't need to sit around a club and say, I don't know what God wants me to do. That's never the question. That's never the question. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but it says here, it's about a relationship. And so they had me, and so what would I be in the relationship? Am I going to be the employee? What would that look like in earthly terms? What would that look like in our everyday life term? He's the employer, I'm the employee. What's his job? Pay, yeah. To give me a support. To pay me. What else is his job? Supervise, direct. Provide me the tools I need. Give me a safe place to work. Motivate me, instruct me, teach me, train me. I just heard the preacher from the Church of the Hour there, punish me, kick my ass. Provide for me, train me, teach me, pay me. Pay me. Give me an opportunity to provide for the people that I should be providing for, basically, is what it is. What's my job as the employee? Show up. Show up in what shape? Yeah, ready to go. Show up, ready to go. How many times did we show up, but we weren't ready to go? Is Clint here? Yeah, he's around here someplace. I saw him a little bit ago. You find me behind a shed someplace trying to straighten out. What else? I have to show up. I have to show up on time. I have to show up in good shape. The point is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and to our fellows. What does that mean, really? Well, if I'm supposed to get some education, get it. If I'm supposed to be in good physical condition, handle that. If I'm supposed to, if I have a medical problem that needs to be, get it handled. I don't have any right to do anything else but show up in the very best condition that I can be in. And I think that it's very spiritual today. Since they don't have any of that up here, but I've been doing a Taibo exercise for about a year now. This is a kickbox thing and something else, and man, I'm the oldest guy in that room. They come in there and they start slamming themselves around. But it's wonderful, it's exhilarating, because I've never once done it 100% where I could really follow what that trainer was doing. Because they do some stuff that's amazing, but there's a very calming effect. And it's a wonderful thing, and you either opt in or you opt out of it. But it has me in better shape than I was before I started that. I think that we need to show up in shape. Another thing about an employer-employee relationship is that the instructions are slightly different than they are, say, in a principal-agent relationship. The instruction on a day might be, go to Oregon and do a step study. All right, I'll do that. Go do this meeting tonight. Take this kid on as a sponsee. Do this, do that. Those kind of instructions. Follow those instructions exactly and do the very, very best that can be done. Follow that. In other words, I'm required to have some loyalty. How about a principal agent? If I'm an agent, what am I? I'm like a real estate agent is given a result to accomplish. Sell the house for the best possible dollar. Top dollar, sell the house. Now, is he going to tell me exactly how to go? No, the agent has some leeway in how he accomplishes, but the idea is to get a result. Get a result. Go start a meeting in Culver City. Okay. Whatever the instruction is, he's the principal, I'm the agent. And I looked at all of the characteristics of that. I looked at all the characteristics of director, actor. I don't know if there's any budding actors here, but if he's the director, what's his job? He finds the material, the play, whatever it is. He comes up with the money. Say it again. Arranges, he does all of that. He's got a producer that arranges the scene. He's got the place to rehearse. He's got the place to put on the production. Big house in Bel Air, yeah. He's got the purpose of the piece. He knows what his purpose is, and he's going to give me a uniform or a costume. He's going to give me lines. Those are my lines. Those are my lines. And as the actor, what is my deal? Learn the lines. Do I usually want more lines? Yeah. Can I have them? No. Do I want a fancier costume? Yes. Can I have it? No. Do I want to get on stage a little earlier? Yes. Does it annoy me to just be put on stage to cue somebody else and then leave? Yes. Do I want to go down front and make a speech? Yes. Do I get to make a speech? No. Sit down. Shut up. Do I get to have a purpose of my own? Only that is subordinate to and consistent with the purpose of the production. Yeah. And then there's father and child. What's the father provide? Everything, yeah. Security, yes. What else? Guidance, shelter, discipline, love, wisdom, guidance, caring. He sets an example. He's the one that sets the standard. Shelter. And so there's security and love and shelter and provides all of that. The Father does. The Father does. What does the child come in with? He's willing. He's obedient. He's teachable, good. He's respectful. He's that's my dad. Remember a little kid? That's my dad.
Rebellion.
A rebellion, yeah. That may not be a requirement. But we run away, we like that. We go for the far country. Remember that story? The prodigal son? The far country. Give me my inheritance. Give me your love, and I'm cutting out. I'm going into the far country today. What's the far country? Well, it's riotous living, but in another sense, it's if I spend the day in resentment, I'm in the far country, man. I am out there. But basically, the relationship of father-child was the one that touched me the most when I looked at this. Yes, I want that relationship. I want a father, and I'll be his child, and I will be his good child, and I will do what I am aware I will do. It won't be my doing, because it's really about what am I going to be? Open? Yeah, I'm open. You want something of me? You want me to do something? Let me know. I'm open. I'm showing up, and I'm showing up in shape. I'm showing up loyal. Somebody asks me who my father is, I know. And I will tell you. I will tell you. Because it's real clear to me. So there's a loyalty there. I used to get so goofy about being wanting a relationship with God because I didn't want to be like those people at the Church of the Air in Billings. They just seem so weird to me. But I'm so happy today to have a relationship, to be His son, to be His child, to be teachable in that profound and wonderful way. And so they had me go through that just to get some idea, and they pointed out one more thing. If God is everything or nothing, the relationship is always in place. There's no days off from this relationship. You are always His child. Always, always His child. So we made this decision, and then we follow that up with the prayer, and we talked about the prayer yesterday. But listen to this. When we sincerely made this decision or took this position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer, being all-powerful. He provided what we needed if we kept close to Him and performed His work well. How are we going to keep close to Him? Stay in touch, stay in contact. Be there, go inside. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves. Here he gets a little cold. He says, our little plans and designs. And they are too. They're just little plans. We become an awakened human being. More and more we become interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind. Can you imagine enjoying peace of mind? No, I'd rather have hatred going on. I want something that makes me know I'm alive. You can't enjoy peace of mind until you have a sense of aliveness that comes from this relationship. As we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of His presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We were reborn. We're now at step 3. Many of us said it to our Maker, and He gives us a step 3 prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee. It's just an offer. He mostly accepts these offers, but it's just an offer. Myself to Thee to build with me and do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties. When I say this prayer with somebody, I say, what are your difficulties? Let's think specifically. My difficulty is that I can't make a living. Great. Think about it when you say take away my difficulty. My difficulty is I can't get along with my wife. Great. Think about that difficulty. My difficulty is I hate my boss. I hate my brother. Good. Think about those difficulties. That victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. We're back to those I would help. Isn't that sickening? It turns up everywhere we look. Of Thy power, Thy love, Thy way of life, may I do Thy will always. There's something missing from the end of that prayer. There's no amen. We don't see amen in this book until the end of the 7th step prayer. The implication is that we're in prayer. We're in prayer. Once we begin this prayer, we are in prayer through these next steps. Okay. That's it. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person. And then we launch. And I have taken that step with guys. I took it with guys when I took it really for the first time in an apartment. 3 of us were there, plus God. We took it in a Sarah retreat. Gary and I knelt down in a little library. We have a Thursday night men's stag, and in the church where we're in, there's a kitchen right around the corner. And there's a lot of stoves and there's rubber mats. I've knelt down more than once on those rubber mats there behind the stoves with the guy. It's always when we're at this point and we say, I offer myself to Thee. It's a big deal. It is a big, big deal. Because we have some sense of what we're doing. And there's a great peace attached to it. Now I belong to somebody in some way. I'm the kid, the employee, the agent, the actor. In some way I'm connected up. I have a place to be and someone that is in charge of my life. It seems like a relief, if we can get there. The inventory is, I think, from what I can feel about it, the way it's set up, it's about power. I always wondered why Wilson would start with power. With resentment. Why list my resentments? What is it? Where is that going to take me? That's no grave sin to resent somebody. That's no really... Why don't I list who I've murdered or stolen from? Today I think that he has us list our resentments because who do I resent? I resent the people that seem more powerful than me. If you don't seem more powerful than me, I may dismiss you, but I likely won't resent you. Even a guy on the street in Los Angeles that comes up and asks me for $1 has the power at that moment to make me feel weird. And I resent him because I don't know what to do with that. I got a dilemma going on, and I put him on my list. When we talk about the fear inventory, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of what seems more powerful than me. So we're back to power. When I'm doing that sex inventory, what is that about? Why are we talking about sex? Why do we single that out? Well, it's more the power game, isn't it? See, I've always tried to, my sex inventory is a chronicle of all the ways that I tried to extract power from a situation that's not a legitimate source of power. It's a legitimate source of love, not power, not power. And so I have these different ways of looking at my life in terms of power and lack of power, and see how I've played this power game. And he asked me to list the people, institutions, and principles that I resent. And I was told to go back, way back. Even if I had listed it in another inventory somewhere, even if I had no active resentment, but only the memory of a resentment, even if it was so far back I couldn't remember the name of the other person and had to write down second grade girl in a red sweater. Put it down there. If you can remember it, put it down, because this is very useful stuff. Because I've got to take a look and see all the ways in which I have lived out these crazy old ideas in my life. I'm mad at my mother. Okay, list her. Mad at my dad. List him. I'm mad at my sister. List her. My brother. My other brother. List him. I'm mad at my second grade teacher. I'm mad at now that's not an active resentment, but I remember being very upset with her. I'm mad at this person. I'm mad at, and you go down the list, and you got a lot of people. You know, you may have 100 people in a lifetime, maybe 200. Some guys show up, well, I have 12 people I'm mad at. Well, go take another look. We need to, whether it's active or not, whether it's recent or not, just list all of that. And the pay dirt is when we were little kids, oddly enough. What did I get mad at when I was a little kid? Because I get mad at somebody that's broken one of my rules, but I don't even know what the rule is until I look to see why I got mad at them and how it affected my self-esteem, my pride, and so on. So I list those people. And then I turn my attention to institutions. What institution do I resent? The dental school threw me out. The Marine Corps threatened to throw me out. IRS. The penal system of the state of California. All those institutions. What principles do I resent? Got to pay your bills. Isn't that irritating as a principle? Got to be faithful. You got to salute. Saluting annoyed me. And by that I meant acknowledging my superiors, people that are given authority over me. I just bristled. I didn't want to play that game. So I had to list all those people. And then when I was done with that, and you can get done with it in an hour as your first run at it, and a few more minutes to clean up, and then you carry a piece of paper around in the car for 3 days and write down names as they occurred to you. And that's all you can do with that column 1. They said, don't go to column 2 until you're done with column 1. We're not going across the page, we're going down. We're going down. And then they said, and they took me to the next sentence in the book, and these are short sentences. This says, in dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. And then we ask ourselves why we were angry. Why am I angry at my mother? She didn't love me. Okay. Is that really true in reality? No. Was I angry with that thought in those days? Yes. Was that my perception of it? Yes. Put it down. She didn't love me. I couldn't trust her. Put it down. This is not designed to make me look good. This is designed to get to my ego beliefs. This is beyond thought and feeling, all of this. Why else am I resentful of she didn't protect me against my grandma. She didn't protect me against my father. She loved my sister more than me. She kept money from me. She wouldn't give me money. I knew she had money, and she always said she didn't have any money. Whatever it is, 7, 8 things that I'm mad at my mom about. Mad at my dad? Yes. Why? Hit my mom. Hit me. Left. Drunk. Embarrassed me. I'm mad at my mom too because she embarrassed me. Those kinds of things. That's all you need is a couple of words. It's not like tell the story, it's a couple of words. As long as you know what those words mean and that story comes up for you, that's all you need. I'm mad at my brother. I have a twin brother named Carl. He could always beat me up. Oh, I hated that. Oh, God, we'd go 10 minutes toe-to-toe in the backyard and then he'd get me. I just hated that so much. He's smarter than me. He could always come in with the A. I used to beat him out good, and then in high school he started really working at it. And he was tough, boy. He was tough. What else? Girls liked him better than me. What else? This, that. Mad at my sister? You bet. Why? She bumped me out of first place. You know, all of that. That whole story. I'm mad at my sister. Why? Because she married a black guy just to make my father mad. None of this was true in reality. She married a black guy, but I found out it didn't have anything to do with my dad. She married him for the silliest reason. She fell in love with him. I just could have shot her for that. This guy that I dismissed turned out when I went back in ninth step to talk to him about staying away from their lives, this guy turned out to be the Deputy Director of Manpower for the state of Colorado. I had no idea. A semi-professional rugby player, I had no idea. A guy that adored my sister and had provided a home for her for 25 years, I had no idea. A guy that had, with the two of them, had raised 6 kids, I had no idea. They had an English teacher in high school, and they had a cop, and they had a lawyer, and they had an accountant, and they had a nurse, and they had a retarded child that earned her own living in a department. I had no idea. I just dismissed people wholesale out of my life. Valuable, valuable people. It's amazing. But we're at step 4, and so we say, I'm going to resent my sister for this, and this, and all the other people in my life. Now I have a name and 4 or 5 reasons I'm mad at that person, and a name and 4 or 5 reasons I'm mad, and a name and 4 or 5 people. Now I've done column 1 and 2 of this inventory. I've looked at the institutions, and I've looked at the principles that I'm angry at and why I'm angry at them. Now I have to take a different look, and this is really, really an important phase of this thing, although it is painstaking and tedious, and that is to look at each one of these things and see how it affected my life. Affected, threatened, or interfered with some factor in my life. And he gives us 7 areas of our life to take a look at. We get to look at self-esteem, which is how I see myself and how I want to see myself. We get to look at pride, which is how I want you to see me. We get to look at personal relations, which is how I think my friends should see me and treat me. We get to look at sex relations, which is how I think that women should see me and treat me. We get to look at what's my ambition? What do I want? What's my security? What do I need to be okay? And finally, what's the pocketbook on it? How much? Where have I misspent money in this regard? That's column 3, and that's an interesting one. I'm mad at my mother because she didn't protect me from my grandmother. If my grandma said I need a beating, my mother beat me. She didn't stand up for me. What does that affect? She didn't stand up for me. What does that affect? That affects my self-esteem. Why? Because I have the rule. The rule is I'm someone who should be totally protected by my mother. What's my pride? Others should see me, especially my grandmother, as someone who is going to be totally protected and worthy of it. What's my personal relationships, not much there. What's my sex relationship? Well, important women should always protect me. The important women in my life, see, it's my mother, and we didn't have a sexual relationship, but that set the tone for sexual relationships. Important women in my life should always protect me. Always. How does that affect my ambition? I want to be always protected by the important women. What is my security? This is an important one because it shows where my security is. See, instead of having my security placed in a relationship with God, my security is I need my mother to always protect me to be okay. And since she never protected me from my point of view, I was never okay. And what else do I need? Where's the money on it? How much money have I spent to get this illusion of protection from women? If I buy them enough things, they'll protect me. They'll be loyal to me. They'll be this and that. And on it goes. And this is where it is. And we go through that whole thing. I'm mad at my dad because he was never there for me. How does that affect my self-esteem? Well, I'm someone you should always be there for. How does it affect my pride? Others should see that my dad is always there for me. Not leaving and traipsing clear around the world or being drunk at the corner. Not home and passed out. But always there for me. That's what I want them to see. Does that affect my personal relationship? Yes, male authority figures should always be there for me. But I know I can't trust him to always be there for me, so I don't have any mentors in my life. And on we go, and on we go, and on we go, and that's it. And that's the first 3 columns. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And then we have another way to look at this thing. We have the 4th column, because most of us knew that everybody else had done some wrong things to us. That's about it as far as we got. But we had to let go of all of this mess. On page 66 it says, if we were to live, we had to be free of anger. And when he says live here, I think he means in every quadrant of our life. If we're going to live spiritually, we have to be free of anger. If we're going to live emotionally, we have to be free of anger. If we're going to be physically and mentally healthy, we have to be free of anger. Anger is a killer. The resentments are a killer. And then he says the grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. When he says grouch, he means sulk. When he says brainstorm, he means tantrum. Those are my options when I'm angry. I either sulk or I have a temper tantrum. They're not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are important, are poison. We turn back to the list for it held the key to the future. The key that will set me free. We're prepared to look for this key from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us in that state. The wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. And first it kills me spiritually, and then emotionally, and then intellectually, and then physically. How could we escape? They had to be mastered. We couldn't wish them away. And we realized the people who wronged us were spiritually sick. We didn't like the people that wronged us is column 1. We didn't like their symptoms. That's column 2. The way they disturbed us is column 3. But they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. We don't get into retaliation or argument. Putting out of our thoughts the wrongs others have done, we resolutely look for our own mistakes, and he gives us 4 key words. Where have I been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? And this is the essence of column 4. I have to look at each of those 4 areas and see where I'd been playing it. Where was I selfish? Where did I think I had to do it all myself? My mother didn't defend me. Well, where did I think that I had to do it all myself? I mean, at some point in my life, I've got to be able to say, if I had been a little healthier, Ma, Grandma's killing me. I wish you'd say something to her. Where had I been dishonest? Well, is it true that she never defended me? No. That's a lie. That is a lie. And how much of it did I lead by my own dishonesty? How much of it did I create myself? Some of what I did was indefensible, and I wanted her to defend it. Where had I been self-seeking? Self-seeking is an interesting thing. I'm just trying to look good. If somebody comes up to me and says, can you give me $100? I may have it. Maybe I even owe it to him. I say, I don't have it. That's selfish. But if I give it to them and they walk away and I turn to somebody else and say, I had to give George another $100 today, that's self-seeking because I want to look good in that situation. Where had I been frightened? What we're frightened of is very often linked back to the self-esteem in column 3. In other words, my mom won't defend me and I am somebody, and so my self-esteem is hurt. My rule is I'm someone that always should be defended. But then when I go down and look at fear in the 4th column, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid I'm not somebody that should ever, I'm afraid I'm someone who should never be defended. That's really my fear. But it gave rise to this silly little rule I have that everybody should always defend me. Because right underneath that is this fear. And I had to get all that down and look at it. And then he swings, and we get it down and we write it down. One of the things that comes out of that, once I know what a guy has as a column 3 idea, how does it, the fact that I'm mad at my dad because he wasn't there, I have an idea, an old idea, and that is that male authority figures are never there for you. And since I decided that early in life, I'm going to start looking now to see in later resentments where that idea starts to pop up again. And if I see it again in 2 or 3 or 4 other places, I know I got an old idea that I'm looking at. I know it'll show up again. Yes, sir.
With the 4th column, it seems to me from what you explained and from my own observation that you can, with 4, self-seeking and frightened, you can, in essence, unravel the resentment effectively. There is a school of thought up there that goes into the rest of the paragraph and pulls like 7 of them out of there: false, blame, wrongs. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that you can handle the entire 4th column with those 4?
I usually do it, just leave it at those 4, because we've got a 5th step to look at this. And if we've done an extended 3rd column, it usually picks up all of that kind of information that those other words would bring us. That's typically the way I've done it. Might be, sometimes we get so far into this that we begin to embellish every little piece of it, and everybody's got a different idea. I've done that myself. Well, next time we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and after a while it's like, oh, God almighty, write an inventory, how many formulas are you going to impose on all of this? Just do the thing. Fritz is one of these that has absolutely no patience with that. Says, well, and then somebody has a notebook, and somebody else has a workbook, and somebody else has this, and somebody else has that, and we kind of have to be a little careful about it. And I suppose whatever we're doing, the fruit of it is when we're done with chapter 5, when we're done with step 5, the real test of how well we've done our work is, once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we're delighted, we can look the world in the eye. If I'm delighted and can look the world in the eye, I got to say that step 4 and 5 were probably sufficient to the task, whatever I did. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. If that's true, I must have done it pretty good. Our fears fall from us. These are all promises. And we look at the promises as a checklist for what we've done. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. If I can do that, I'm probably on track with 4 and 5. It's really, we're kind of tapping our way to the curb. We're kind of feeling our way here. And there's a lot of words, and we could grab them and write a paragraph or a chapter on them. And I'm just reporting an experience, and this is what they did. And I haven't developed a lot of theory other than that. I found it to be pretty effective with guys, the way that they gave it to me. I suppose we could root out a little bit more. It seems, though, in a 5th step that a lot of that just falls out. It just gets to be out there so you can see it and look at it. Because now there's 3 people. There's 2 humans and God in the 5th step. And in the 4th step, there's 1 person writing it alone. So it's really expansive. But that's a good point, and I appreciate the question. Does anybody else have a comment or question? Yes, sir.
Yes, as you go through the steps through the years,
terms of writing down the list like that, we ferreted out all of the things wrong, or as best as we can, all the things, all the people were mad at, or all the resentment. And when I look at that list, I read it and I say, I can't think of any more. I've covered those guys, and then I try and think. So,
well, I think you're talking about if I take another inventory.
Sure.
Yeah. First of all, let me say that when I was done with my 8-step list, and it listed from the inventory all the people that I owed amends to, they said, that's all you need of that inventory. Do not keep it. Respectfully discard that inventory. You can burn it in a fire at the beach or in your fireplace. You can take it up to the mountaintop and bury it. You can put it in a trash bag and respectfully dispose of it that way. Get rid of that inventory once you have used it for all that it can be used. Now, I go outside the inventory and look at Christmas card lists and office lists and directories and stuff to find out other people that I may have harmed. But if I'm done with the inventory at the end of my 8-step list, let it go out of your life. That's what they told me. And I think that's good advice. I did that. Came time for me to write an inventory again. I didn't try to go back and stir up that. I had been very thorough in this inventory finally, like at 24 years. And I just started again. I'm resentful at my wife. I'm resentful at my boss. I'm resentful at this. 5 names.
Current.
Yeah, current. That's all. That's all. In fact, and this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but after I had done this work and was complete with my amends and doing 10 and 11 and 12, I had maybe 2 years go by, and I was feeling bad about stuff, and I had kind of drifted away from being in conscious contact, and I was having some difficulties. Don and I got into a conversation one day. We ran into one another at a conference, or we were doing something, and we got to thinking about this power. How elegant it is. Meaning how there's no wasted energy in this power. Meaning like, 1 minute I'm a drunk and the next I'm not. That efficiency, that power. And how astonishing it is, and that I'm the one that slows. And we knew that we had both gone through this process and picked up bits of power as we went through it. And it had assimilated that in terms of our relationship with God. And since we knew that power was elegant, and since we both had something that we wanted to inventory, we decided to get together for a day and do that. And I was at a place in my life where I could get on an airplane and flip back to North Carolina, where Don was at the time. And I did that. And we started in his place at 8:30 on a Saturday morning. In Bill's story, we never left Bill's story. And went through all of those steps. And by 8:30 that night, we were at step 8 and ready for 9. Each of us had brought a piece of inventory back there. And we went through that thing, and we knew. First of all, Don reminded me of something that I would not have thought of. He said, don't forget, we're both spiritually fit. And we have every right to request and receive all of the power in the world. And we just need to go through a process here. And we did that. And it was the most amazing experience. Because in a day, I was reconnected, healed, freed up, and I went back and made amends, and it was very sweet. And I've done that a couple of times. I flew up to Portland and spent a day with Carl and with Don up there. I 3 months ago sat with a guy in my office for 7 hours that had been through this, and we did it again. I mean, it's just like that. I do not agree with the people that will every year decide that they should go through the steps again, because their entire life seems to be consumed by going through the steps again. And sometimes I watch them, they get right up to step 9 and then they say, well, I need more power. I think I'll go back to step 1. And then you see them sitting in meetings, they say, I'm George and I'm finding out. Finding out what, George? Well, I'm re-looking at whether I'm alcoholic or not. You don't have any amends you need to make, do you, George? Well, I need to look at this first. It's just an interesting way to play that game. But the power is absolutely elegant and available. Once we've been through it once, without power, we pick up power. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. But that was my experience, just my experience. And a little bit of judgment thrown in just for the hell of it. And I don't judge. I think you've noticed that, haven't you? Okay, where were we? Any other comments, questions? Yes? No? Oh, he's just looking at the ceiling. All right, sir. That's okay. Go ahead.
You mentioned that you go back and when you're writing a inventory, you lose everything you've written before, even if you can't remember the name. And you may have already written it then, and I'm not in this first second.
I didn't say that.
What was that part that you said about, and it came right before you said, and maybe I don't remember that it was read.
Oh, that's going through it for the first time.
Okay.
The first time. I had written an autobiographical inventory years earlier, but this is really going through this process the first time.
I was worried because, I haven't that.
Oh no, I wouldn't do that at all. I don't think there's anything to be learned from that. Yeah. Talk some more about that inventory that we were talking about earlier today. We talked about the 4-column resentment inventory, and we have two other stages of that inventory to do. And one is the fear inventory. And they told me, just list your fears. List everything that you're afraid of. Just a word or two, whatever it is. And then they said, list the opposite. Look at the opposite. What am I afraid of? And so I would list, I'm afraid of failure. And I said, look at success. Are you also afraid of success? Yeah, I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of a close commitment. Are you also afraid of no commitment? Yeah. I'm afraid of having a lot of success in my life. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of all of these things. And as I looked at that, and as I looked at the opposite of those things, I could see that I had an awful lot of fears. And they said, take a look at what's underneath that. Why are you afraid of success? And they had me do it in columnar form. I'm afraid of success. What's right under that? Well, I'm afraid if I succeed, I can't maintain that. What happens if you can't maintain it? I'll fail. What happens if you fail? I'll look like a fool. What happens if you look like a fool? People don't want to be around me. What happens if people don't want to be around me? I'll be alone. Are you afraid of failure? Yes. Why? I'll look like a fool and I'll be alone. Are you afraid of being committed to somebody? A real commitment? Yeah. Why? Because it's going to fall apart. Or I'll feel so stifled. I think that was commitment makes me feel stifled and limited, and I'm not. I can't do what I want. I have to sacrifice too much. What happens then? Well, I'll get tired of the sacrifice and I won't stay with the commitment. And then the commitment will drop away. And then I'll be alone. Are you afraid of being alone? Yeah, we could see how all that went. Anyway, it was very interesting to see all the things that I was afraid of. And it was very interesting to see that each one of those things went to either alone or drink or death. The basic fears that we have are those. But it's a great exercise and an important thing to look at that. I also challenged them pretty good because they said that fear ought to be classed with stealing because it creates as much trouble. And I said, I don't quite get that because stealing is a volitional thing. I decide to steal. Fear seems to just come on me. But they took me back to the book and they said that's not quite how it goes. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper. We ask ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? And I got that it's volitional. My fear isn't volitional, but my decision for self-reliance is. And the minute I decide to rely on myself, I'm in fear. I'm in fear. And so I choose it just as I would choose to steal. And because it is stealing. It robs me of my peace of mind. It's a lie. It's like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to rely on myself. Self-reliance causes me a lot of trouble because I don't have any power. I've got to tap into power, which is a completely different way of looking at stuff. Please get this handled for me. It's much different than anything I ever thought. It's the interesting way that he describes these fears. He says, the short word somehow touches every aspect of our lives. It's an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances. Trains of circumstances. Can you see that big freight train going through there, and every car is a circumstance? It just bangs us. We didn't deserve all that, but we set the ball rolling ourselves. And it's in this fear inventory that he says this. We're on the basis of trusting God. We rely on God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite self. We are in the world to play the role He assigns. That sounds like that employer-employee or director-actor thing or father-child thing that we were talking about earlier. It's not a partnership deal. We're in the world to play the role He assigns. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us. And here again, as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. As we think He would have us, we form our own visions as we think He would have us. It's tomorrow we're going to talk about, if I remind me tomorrow, talk about a mission, our mission in life. I think it's an important step, because that's one of the ways that we can find out what we're supposed to be doing, what we think He would have us be doing, specifically in the world. Because each of us has a mission, and we better find out what it is so we can get on with it. We never apologize to anyone for depending on our Creator. All men of faith have courage. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. We never apologize for God. And here's that language I was talking about earlier. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. It's not up to us to do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. Be. I have done that exercise. And He says that once we commence to outgrow fear. The exercise is very interesting. It's a meditative kind of an exercise. I'm afraid. I'm really afraid. And I sit in a chair. And I calm down and get into an alpha state, get my breathing handled. And I ask God in that state, remove my fear. Some people talk about walking through fear. I don't know. This book doesn't say anything about walking through fear. When I walk through fear, you know what's on the other side? More fear is what it is. We ask God to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. That's a very interesting exercise, because if I can just be there and get in touch with the fact that I'm not alone, and I've already done step 2 and 3, so I have some sense of that, and slowly I will become a little distanced from my fears. My fears are a lie anyway. Fears are always a lie. Always a lie. It's just my ego's way of keeping me in familiar territory. Remove my fear. And I feel the fears just dissolving. And I'm sitting there without fear. And the next is direct my attention to what you would have me be. And within a moment or 2 or 10, letting the thoughts just go through and being still and finding that safe place in me and that place of divinity in me, a word will float up. Be committed. Be faithful. Be fun. Be enjoyable. Whatever the word is, when you get that word, if you do, and I don't every time, you almost have marching orders. I mean, it gives you a great sense of, okay, I got it. Now I know what to be. I know what to be. And when I know what to be, this business about what will I do just kind of takes care of itself. But it's not up to me to do anything. God will demonstrate through me what He can do. And my only question is, what will you have me be? Those fears were quite interesting. Those fears really were a long list that got carried out and seemed to go to either drunk, alone, or dead. And that's basically what I'm so afraid of. That's basically it. Now, is there some big breakthrough or something we should do with that? Just notice it. Just notice it. I've been run by those fears, and we begin to outgrow fear if we can handle that fear inventory in that way. And it's not a long, involved process. What does that take? An hour to write down all my fears and look at the opposites and follow that out to see where they go and why, what's the basis, what's under each fear. And they all come down to the same couple of things for most of us. I haven't seen an exception yet. And then we do a sex inventory. Many of us needed an overhauling there. You know what overhauling means in the dictionary? Inspection and repair. Inspection and repair. We had to look at it and heal it up. A sex inventory, the way we did it and the way I do it, the only way I know, is about how I treat people when there is sexual tension involved. There have been women in my life with whom I've had sex, and there wasn't any sexual tension. Ships in the night. I never saw them again, or it was just one of these coming together that didn't have much significance, except that there was intercourse attached to it. She went her way, and I went my way. And we both knew we wouldn't see each other again, and we hadn't really been close to each other before that. There's no sexual tension there. And they're not, I might owe that person an amends. I might have been disrespectful in the process. But as far as my sex inventory is concerned, there's not a lot to learn there. The pay dirt is where there's sexual tension. And that starts very early for us. I mean, most of us wanted at some point along the line to take a whack at our third grade teacher or a sixth grade teacher. And we had sexual tension. Usually powerful women, we think that's women that look like they have authority in our lives. One way to kind of even up the playing field. And we start early with it. We have an active mental, imaginary sex life fairly early in our lives. And those are the people where there was sexual tension. And of course, there are the other people I have, whether we're married to them and there's sexual tension, meaning that this woman, see, the fears are about where the power is, and the sex inventory is about where the power is, because she's the gatekeeper. She's the gatekeeper. She has, no authority over where this is going to go. And in that sense, she's got a lot of power in an important area in my life. And if I want this woman, and there's sexual tension in that sense, and she doesn't comply, she's not interested, or she does it on her own terms or her own frequency, all of that, or gets involved in whatever game I'm involved in the thing, it sets up the sexual tension, and the question gets to be, is there something to be learned about how I treat people that have that particular kind of power? How do I play that power game? Do I get closer? Do I chase? Do I back off? Do I stop? Is it possible for me to be a real friend to a woman where there's sexual tension? No, not really. Not really. I'm going to manipulate that woman. I'm going to do everything I can except be a friend. Because I just play a little game about that. I can't be there for her like I would be for a guy. It's very interesting, and it's so automatic for us that we, what if that was a male? How would I treat that person? God, you know what? I like that person. And if it weren't for this sexual tension, I would be much different with her. If it was a guy, I wouldn't have any problem with it. I would like him, and we'd laugh together and get carried on. And we'd just have fun. But no, this lady is somebody with whom I want to go to bed, and so it's a different game I play. And it's all about power. She's got the power, I don't have the power. And so they said, make a list of the women in your life with whom you had sexual tension. Some of them I was married to and had intercourse with. Some of them I barely knew. Some of them I was of an age that there was no way, of course, in grade school or junior high school, that I can have intercourse with a woman older than I am, as a teacher, whatever. That just doesn't come up much. I see these things on TV now, these women that get sent to jail for having sex with teenage kids, and I go, God, where were you when I needed you? Wow. Pretty ladies. I go, damn. Why would they lock her up for that? Then she got out, and boom, she's right with that guy again, and gets got pregnant. Just amazing story. Brought tears to my eyes, that story. I thought there'd be a lot of women, but when I looked, there was maybe a dozen women in my life that fell into that category. Half of them I'd never been with. A couple where I was so young that it didn't, and then some that never. And they said, make a separate sheet for each one of those dozen women and put the name of the woman each woman at the top of a separate piece of paper. This is just what they told me to do. And describe the relationship, how it began, what I wanted from it, what I was willing to give for what I wanted, a very short sentence usually. It never occurred to me I had to give up anything for what I wanted. What I did and how I acted when I didn't get what I wanted, or when it stopped. When I stopped getting what I wanted, how did I act then? Where was the tension in the relationship? How I dealt with it when it just became suffocating and began to cloy, and how it ended. For each relationship, I had to write, it was maybe 3 paragraphs. Most of it was just one side of a piece of paper. Trace the relationship. Get back in touch with what happened. And on the other side of it, I was to answer these 9 questions that are on page 69. Where had I been selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? That's number 4. Did we unselfishly arouse jealousy? That's 5. Did we unselfishly arouse suspicion? That's 6. Did we unjustifiably, arouse bitterness? Where were we at fault, and what should we have done instead? Those are 9 separate questions.